The clock on the wall showed 2:47 a.m. when Maya finally hung up her apron. Her feet ached something terrible, and her back felt like someone had been using it as a punching bag all day. But she couldn't complain. Not when she needed every single dollar she could get her hands on. Romano's fine dining was the kind of place where rich people came to eat food that cost more than what most folks made in a week. Maya had been working there for almost 3 years now, ever since everything in her life had gone sideways. The pay wasn't great, but the tips from wealthy customers helped her scrape together enough money to keep going. She grabbed her worn-out jacket from her locker and checked her phone. 7 missed calls from the hospital. Her heart sank. These calls never brought good news. "Hey, this is Maya," she said when she called back. "Miss Rodriguez, this is Dr. Patterson from St. Mary's. We need to talk about your brother's treatment plan." Maya's stomach dropped. Her little brother Diego had been in and out of hospitals for 2 years now. The doctor said he needed expensive treatment that their insurance barely covered. Every month she got bills that made her head spin. What's wrong? Is he okay? Diego is stable, but we need to discuss the next phase of his treatment. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Maya looked at her work schedule on her phone. She was supposed to work a double shift tomorrow, but Diego came first. He always came first. "I'll be there," she said. As she walked to her beat-up car, Maya thought about how different her life used to be. 3 years ago, she had been accepted to one of the best music schools in the country. She was going to study piano and maybe become a professional musician. Her teacher said she had real talent, the kind that comes around once in a lifetime. But then her parents died in that terrible car accident and everything changed. Diego was only 16 and sick, and Maya was all he had left. She gave up her scholarship and took the first job she could find to pay for his medical bills and keep a roof over their heads. Sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, Maya would think about the piano. She missed it so much it felt like a physical pain in her chest. She missed the way the keys felt under her fingers, the way music could make her forget about everything else in the world. But there was no time for music now. There was only work and more work. The next morning at Romano's was particularly busy. It was Friday, which meant the restaurant would be packed with wealthy business people celebrating another successful week of making money. Maya tied her apron and got ready for another long day. Around noon, she noticed him walk in. Mr. Blackstone. He was impossible to miss with his expensive suit and the way he carried himself like he owned the world. Maya had served him many times before, and it was never pleasant. Mr. Blackstone was the kind of rich person who seemed to enjoy making life difficult for people who worked for a living. He would complain about everything, snap his fingers to get attention, and leave terrible tips even when the service was perfect. Maya had heard other servers talking about him in the break room, sharing stories about how rude he could be. Great, Maya muttered under her breath as she saw him being seated in her section. Mr. Blackstone wasn't alone today. He had brought a group of his wealthy friends, all dressed in expensive clothes and talking loudly about their latest business deals. Maya took a deep breath and walked over to their table. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to Romano's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Mr. Blackstone looked up at her with that smug expression he always wore. Well, if it isn't our favorite little waitress, still humming those little tunes while you work, I see." Maya felt her cheeks burn. She did hum sometimes while she worked, usually without realizing it. It was just something that happened when she was focused on her tasks. She had no idea anyone had noticed. "I apologize if that bothered you, sir. What can I get you to drink?" "Oh, it doesn't bother me," Mr. Blackstone said with a nasty smile. "I just find it amusing that you think you're some kind of musician or something. Tell me, do you play any instruments or do you just hum?" His friends chuckled, and Maya felt her face getting hotter. She wanted to tell him that she had played piano since she was 5 years old, that she had won competitions and had been accepted to music school. But she kept her mouth shut. Customers like Mr. Blackstone weren't interested in hearing about her life. "I'll have a whiskey, top shelf," Mr. Blackstone said. "And make sure it's actually top shelf, not the cheap stuff you probably serve to people like yourself." Maya wrote down the order and turned to the other men at the table. They were slightly less rude than Mr. Blackstone, but she could tell they Enjoyed watching him make fun of the staff. Rich people and their games, she thought. As she walked away from the table, Maya heard Mr. Blackstone say something to his friends that made them all laugh. She didn't catch what it was, but she was sure it was about her. She had dealt with customers like him before, but it never got easier. The afternoon wore on, and Mr. Blackstone's table got louder and more demanding. They ordered expensive wine, and complained about everything. The food was too hot, then too cold. The music was too loud, then too quiet. Maya ran back and forth trying to keep them happy while serving her other tables. Around 4 o'clock, she overheard Mr. Blackstone talking to his friends about some kind of party he was throwing. "It's going to be at Romano's private dining room," he was saying. "Johnson's birthday party. I've spared no expense. The best food, the finest wine, live entertainment." "What kind of entertainment?" one of his friends asked. "I hired a piano player, some guy from downtown. Supposed to be really good." Maya's heart skipped a beat at the mention of piano, but she forced herself to focus on her work. She had tables to serve and bills to pay. There was no point in thinking about music. Around 6 o'clock, Mr. Blackstone's phone rang. Maya was refilling their water glasses when she heard him curse loudly. "What do you mean he can't make it? This is completely unacceptable." He was talking to someone about his party, and from what Maya could gather, his piano player had canceled at the last minute. "I don't care if his kid is sick. I paid good money for this. Find me someone else." But apparently there was nobody else available on such short notice. Mr. Blackstone hung up the phone and looked furious. His friends tried to calm him down, saying it wasn't a big deal, but Maya could see he was the kind of person who didn't like it when things didn't go his way. That's when she noticed him staring at the old piano in the corner of the restaurant. Romano's had bought it years ago to add some class to the place, but hardly anyone ever played it. It just sat there, covered in dust, looking sad and forgotten. Maya saw a strange look come over Mr. Blackstone's face, like he had just gotten an idea. And somehow she had a feeling it wasn't going to be a good idea. The rest of her shift passed quietly, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Mr. Blackstone kept looking at her, then at the piano, then back at her. It made her nervous. When her shift ended, Maya was exhausted. She had been on her feet for 10 hours straight, and she still had to go visit Diego at the hospital. But as she was getting ready to leave, her manager called her over. "Maya, I need you to work tomorrow night too. We're hosting a private party in the dining room and we need extra staff." "Tomorrow's my day off," Maya said. "I was going to spend time with my brother." "I know, but this is important. The customer is paying us a lot of money for this party. I'll pay you overtime." Maya thought about Diego's medical bills and sighed. She needed the money even if it meant giving up her only day off. "Okay, I'll do it." "Great. And Maya, make sure you dress nicely tomorrow. This is a high-class event." As Maya drove to the hospital, she wondered what kind of party required extra staff and fancy clothes. She had a bad feeling about it, but she pushed those thoughts away. She had more important things to worry about. At the hospital, Diego looked tired but managed to smile when she walked into his room. "Hey, sis, how was work?" "Same as always," Maya said, sitting down next to his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better today. The new medicine seems to be helping." Maya felt a wave of relief. Diego's health had been up and down for months, and every good day felt like a gift. "The doctor wants to try a new treatment," Diego said, "but it's expensive." Maya's heart sank. They were already struggling to pay for his current treatment, and now there was something new and even more expensive. "Don't worry about the money," she said, taking his hand. "We'll figure it out. We always do." But as she sat there with her brother, Maya couldn't help but wonder how much longer she could keep this up. She was working herself to death, and it still wasn't enough. Sometimes she felt like she was drowning, and every time she tried to swim to the surface, another wave pushed her back down. "Do you ever miss it?" Diego asked quietly. "Miss what?" "Playing piano. I remember how happy you used to be when you played." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She did miss it more than she could ever explain. But there was no point in missing something that was never coming back. "That was a long time ago," she said. I have more important things to focus on now. Like me, Diego said, looking guilty. Hey, Maya said, squeezing his hand. Taking care of you isn't a burden. You're my little brother and I love you. Everything. I do because I want to. That was true mostly. Maya would do anything for Diego. Maya arrived at Romano's the next evening wearing her best black dress. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and professional. She had borrowed some makeup from her neighbor and even managed to do something nice with her hair. The manager had said this was a high-class event, so she wanted to look her best. The private dining room had been transformed for the party. Expensive flowers decorated every table, and soft lighting made everything look elegant and sophisticated. Maya had never seen the restaurant look so fancy. This Mr. Johnson must be pretty important to get this kind of treatment. Maya, you'll be working the main dining area tonight, her manager told her. These are very important customers, so make sure everything is perfect. Maya nodded and got to work setting up tables and making sure everything was ready. Other servers bustled around, polishing glasses and arranging silverware. Everyone seemed a little nervous about this party. Around 7 o'clock, the guests started arriving. Maya recognized some faces from the restaurant. Wealthy business people, well-dressed women dripping with jewelry, and men in suits that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. They all had that confident way of walking that came with having lots of money. Then Mr. Blackstone walked in and Maya's stomach dropped. She had hoped he wouldn't be here tonight, but of course he was. This was his party after all. He looked around the room like a king surveying his kingdom, clearly pleased with how everything had turned out. "Evening, everyone," Mr. Blackstone called out loudly. "Welcome to what I promise will be an unforgettable celebration of our dear friend Johnson." The crowd applauded politely, and Maya noticed how everyone seemed to hang on his every word. Mr. Blackstone was clearly the kind of person who was used to being the center of attention. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. Maya served drinks and appetizers, and the guests seemed to be enjoying themselves. The conversation was loud and full of laughter, mostly about business deals and expensive vacations. Maya moved quietly between the tables, trying to stay invisible, but she could feel Mr. Blackstone watching her. Every time she looked up, his eyes were on her, and there was something in his expression that made her uncomfortable. It reminded her of a cat watching a mouse, waiting for the right moment to pounce. Around 8:30, disaster struck. Mr. Blackstone's phone rang, and Maya watched his face change from happy to furious in seconds. "What do you mean you're not coming?" He shouted into the phone. "This is completely unacceptable. I don't care what your excuse is." The entire room went quiet. Everyone stared at Mr. Blackstone as he continued yelling at whoever was on the other end of the call. "You've ruined my entire party. Do you understand that? These people came here, expecting live entertainment." Maya realized what was happening. The piano player had canceled and Mr. Blackstone was having a complete meltdown. She had seen him get upset before, but this was different. His face was red, and he looked like he might explode. "Find me someone else. I don't care what it costs." But apparently, there was no one else available. Mr. Blackstone hung up and stood there for a moment, breathing heavily. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, trying to regain his composure, "I apologize for that interruption. Unfortunately, our scheduled entertainment has had to cancel due to unreliable circumstances." The crowd murmured sympathetically, but Maya could see the disappointment on their faces. These were people who were used to getting what they paid for, and a party without entertainment wasn't what they had been promised. That's when Mr. Blackstone's eyes landed on the old piano in the corner. Maya had forgotten it was even there. It was covered with a cloth and surrounded by potted plants. But now Mr. Blackstone was staring at it like it was the answer to all his problems. Then his gaze shifted to Maya, and she saw that same cruel smile she had seen yesterday. Her heart started beating faster. "Actually," Mr. Blackstone said loudly, "I think we might have entertainment after all." He walked over to where Maya was standing and put his hand on her shoulder. His grip was firm, almost possessive. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Maya, one of Romano's finest servers. And as it turns out, she's also musically inclined." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "Sir, I don't know what you mean." "Oh, don't be modest. Mr. Blackstone said with that fake, cheerful voice people use when they're about to do something. I've heard you humming at work. Clearly you have musical aspirations, and look, we have a piano right here. The crowd turned to look at Maya, and she felt like she was under a spotlight. These wealthy, important people were all staring at her, waiting to see what would happen next. Mr. Blackstone, I really don't think... Maya started, but he cut her off. Nonsense, I'm sure you'd love the opportunity to perform for such a distinguished audience. It's not every day a waitress gets to play for people like this. Maya's cheeks burned with embarrassment. The way he said waitress made it sound like something shameful. And the worst part was, some of the guests were starting to smile like they thought this was amusing. I appreciate the offer, sir, but I'm working tonight. I need to serve the other tables. The other tables can wait, Mr. Blackstone said dismissively. This is much more important. Besides, I'm sure you could use the extra money. He pulled out his wallet and made a big show of counting out bills. Maya watched in horror as he waved a $100 bill in the air. Tell you what, Maya, if you play us a nice song, this $100 is yours. That's probably more than you make in tips all week, isn't it? Some of the guests chuckled, and Maya felt like she was shrinking inside her own skin. Mr. Blackstone was making a joke out of her, turning her into entertainment for his rich friends. I really can't, sir. I don't even know how to play piano. That was a lie, of course. Maya could play piano better than most professional musicians, but she couldn't tell him that. She couldn't let these people know about the most precious part of herself, the part she had locked away when her life fell apart. Oh, come now, Mr. Blackstone said, his voice getting harder. Don't be so modest. I'm sure you can manage something simple. Twinkle, twinkle. Little star, perhaps? The crowd laughed at that, and Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. This was humiliation, pure and simple. Mr. Blackstone was trying to make her look foolish in front of all these important people. Please, sir, I really don't know how to play. But Mr. Blackstone wasn't taking no for an answer. His fake smile was getting more forced, and Maya could see anger building behind his eyes. Maya, I'm offering you good money to provide a simple service. Surely you're not too proud to earn an honest dollar. The way he said it made it sound like refusing would be ungrateful and stupid. Maya looked around the room and saw that all the guests were watching this exchange like it was a show. Some looked uncomfortable, but others seemed to be enjoying her discomfort. I think perhaps we should just... One woman started to say, but Mr. Blackstone held up his hand. No, this is perfect. Maya here is going to show us what she can do. Isn't that right, Maya? There was something threatening in his voice now. Maya realized that if she refused, he might make things difficult for her at work. He was clearly the kind of person who had influence, and she couldn't afford to lose her job. But before she could respond, her manager appeared at her side. Is everything all right here? He asked nervously. Everything's wonderful, Mr. Blackstone said smoothly. I was just asking Maya to play piano for our guests. Go above and beyond for customer service. Maya looked at her manager, silently pleading with him to help her get out of this situation. But she could see the conflict in his eyes. Mr. Blackstone was paying a lot of money for this party, and the manager couldn't afford to upset him. Well, the manager said slowly, if the customer is requesting additional services, I suppose. Maya, if you're comfortable with it. Maya felt trapped. Her manager was basically telling her to do what Mr. Blackstone wanted, even though it wasn't part of her job. And Mr. Blackstone was standing there with that cruel smile, clearly enjoying her discomfort. I really don't know how to play very well, Maya said desperately. That's okay, Mr. Blackstone said with fake enthusiasm. We're not expecting Carnegie Hall, just a simple song to entertain our guests. How hard can it be? He gestured toward the piano, and Maya felt like she was walking toward her own execution. The guests parted to make room for her, and she could hear them whispering among themselves. This should be interesting, someone said. Poor girl, another voice said, but not loud enough for Mr. Blackstone to hear. Maya reached the piano and stood there for a moment staring at the covered keyboard. Her hands were shaking. She hadn't touched a piano in 3 years. Not since she gave up her dreams to take care of Diego. "Go ahead," Mr. Blackstone called out. "Don't be shy." Some of the guests had taken out their phones, clearly planning to record whatever happened next. Maya realized that her humiliation might end up on social media, shared and laughed at by strangers. She pulled away the cloth covering the piano keys, and suddenly she was transported back in time. The keys looked exactly like the ones she used to practice on for hours every day. Her fingers remembered the feel of them even after all this time. "Any time now," Mr. Blackstone said impatiently. Maya sat down on the bench and placed her fingers on the keys. The piano was old and hadn't been tuned in a while, but it would have to do. She took a deep breath, and the first notes that came from the piano were nothing like what anyone in the room had expected. Instead of a simple tune or a clumsy attempt at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the air filled with the haunting, complex melody of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. Maya's fingers moved across the keys with a confidence and skill that seemed impossible. This wasn't someone who was just learning to play or trying to fake their way through a song. This was the work of a true musician, someone who had spent years mastering their craft. The room fell completely silent. Even Mr. Blackstone, who had been smirking with anticipation of Maya's embarrassment, suddenly looked confused. This wasn't what he had planned at all. As Maya played, something magical happened. All the pain and stress and exhaustion of the past 3 years began to flow out through her fingers. The music became a language for everything she couldn't say. Her grief over losing her parents, her fear about Diego's health, her loneliness, and her buried dreams. But there was something else in the music too. There was the love she felt for her brother, the strength she had found in herself when everything fell apart, and the hope that somehow, someday, things would get better. The piano itself seemed to come alive under her touch. Despite being old and slightly out of tune, it responded to Maya like it had been waiting for her all these years. Every note was perfect, every phrase filled with emotion that reached into the hearts of everyone listening. Maya had chosen this particular piece because it had always felt like her story. It started soft and gentle, like childhood memories of learning to play. Then it built into something more complex and challenging, full of technical difficulties that would test any pianist's abilities. But it wasn't just showing off. Every difficult passage served the emotional content of the music. As she moved into the more challenging sections, Maya's years of training showed clearly. Her left hand played complicated bass patterns while her right hand danced across the higher keys with lightning-fast runs and delicate melodic lines. She navigated the piece's sudden changes in mood and tempo with the skill of someone who truly understood the music, not just the notes. The guests stood frozen, afraid to move or make any sound that might break the spell. Many of them were wealthy, enough to attend the finest concerts and operas in the world, and they recognized immediately that they were witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't just good playing. This was artistry of the highest level. Mrs. Chen, the wife of a prominent businessman, felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She had studied piano herself as a young woman and knew how incredibly difficult this piece was. Most professional pianists would need months of practice to perform it at this level, and here was a Waitress playing it from memory with perfect technique and deep emotional understanding. Dr. Williams, a retired music professor who had taught at the conservatory for 30 years, stood with his mouth slightly open. In all his years of teaching and attending concerts, he had rarely heard Chopin played with such authentic feeling. This young woman wasn't just playing the notes. She was telling a story, sharing her soul with everyone in the room. Even the younger guests, who might not have appreciated classical music under normal circumstances, found themselves completely captivated. There was something universal in Maya's playing that spoke to anyone who had ever experienced loss, struggle, or unfulfilled dreams. Mr. Blackstone, meanwhile, was starting to realize that his cruel joke had backfired spectacularly. He had expected Maya to stumble through a simple tune, providing entertainment at her expense while proving his point about her place in the world. Instead, she was demonstrating a level of talent that put her far above anyone else in the room. Maya moved into the piece's most challenging section. Her playing became even more intense. Her fingers flew across the keys in passages that required years of practice to master. But it wasn't just technical skill. Every note was filled with meaning and purpose. The music told the story of struggle and triumph, of dreams deferred but not destroyed. It spoke of the strength it takes to sacrifice your own happiness for someone you love, and the courage required to keep going when everything seems hopeless. Maya was no longer aware of her audience. She was lost in the music, in the joy of reconnecting with this part of herself that she had locked away. Her body moved naturally with the rhythm, her face reflecting every emotion in the piece. This was who she really was, under all the uniforms and tired smiles and financial worries. As she approached the climactic section of the ballade, Maya's playing reached an intensity that left the entire room breathless. The music, built to moments of incredible complexity and power, then suddenly dropped to passages of heartbreaking tenderness. She navigated these changes with the instinct of a true artist, making every transition feel inevitable and right. Some of the guests began to recognize what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a talented amateur or someone with a bit of musical training. This was the level of playing you might hear at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center. They were watching someone who could have been a professional concert pianist, someone who had clearly dedicated years of her life to mastering this instrument. The questions began forming in their minds. How was it possible that someone with this much talent was working as a waitress? What circumstances had led to this extraordinary musician serving their table just hours before? And why had Mr. Blackstone thought this would be funny? Maya herself was experiencing a flood of memories as she played. She remembered her first piano lesson when she was 5 years old, how excited she had been to finally touch the keys of a real piano. She remembered years of practice, competitions where she had won first place, and the acceptance letter to music school that had filled her with such hope and pride. She also remembered the phone call that changed everything, the police officer's voice telling her about the accident, the moment she realized that her parents were gone and Diego needed her, the day she called the music school to tell them she wouldn't be coming after all. All of that pain and sacrifice flowed into her playing, but so did something else, the realization that the music had never really left her. It had been waiting, inside her all this time, ready to come back to life whenever she was ready to let it. As Maya began the final section of the piece, her playing took on an even more personal quality. This was her story now, not just Chopin's. The music spoke of resilience, of finding beauty in the midst of hardship, and of the unbreakable bonds between people who love each other. The ending of the ballade required incredible technical skill, with rapid passages that demanded perfect coordination between both hands. But Maya played them effortlessly, her years of training evident in every note. As she approached the final measures, the music built to one last moment of intensity before resolving into a conclusion that felt both satisfying and bittersweet. When the last note faded into silence, the room remained completely still for what felt like an eternity. Maya sat at the piano bench, her hands still resting on the keys, almost afraid to look up and see the faces of the people who had just heard her bare her soul through music. The silence stretched on, and Maya began to worry that she had made a terrible mistake. Maybe they hadn't liked it. Maybe they thought she was showing off or trying to make them look foolish. Maybe Mr. Blackstone was angry that she hadn't humiliated herself the way he had planned. But then someone started clapping. It was Mrs. Chen, the businessman's wife who had been moved to tears. Her applause was slow and deliberate, filled with respect and admiration. One by one, the other guests joined in until the entire room was filled with the sound of applause that went on and on. But this wasn't the polite, obligatory clapping that usually followed entertainment at parties like this. This was the kind of applause reserved for truly exceptional performances, the kind that comes from people who have just witnessed something they will never forget. Several guests rose to their feet, giving Maya a standing ovation that showed their genuine appreciation for what they had just experienced. The applause continued for several minutes, with some people calling out, "Bravo," and "magnificent." Maya finally looked up from the piano keys, and what she saw took her breath away. These wealthy, sophisticated people The same ones who had been watching her with amusement just minutes before were now looking at her with complete respect and admiration. But the most shocking sight was Mr. Blackstone himself. The cruel smile had completely disappeared from his face, replaced by an expression of confusion and something that might have been shame. His plan to humiliate Maya had not just failed. It had revealed her to be more talented than anyone he could have hired for his party. As the applause finally began to die down, Maya realized that something had changed forever. She could never go back to being invisible, to hiding this part of herself. The music was out now and there was no putting it back. As the thunderous applause finally began to fade, Maya remained seated at the piano, hardly believing what had just happened. The same people who had been watching her with amused curiosity just minutes before were now looking at her with genuine respect and amazement. The first person to approach her was Mrs. Chen, tears still visible in her eyes. She walked over to the piano with purpose, completely ignoring Mr. Blackstone, who was standing nearby looking stunned and confused. "My dear," Mrs. Chen said, her voice filled with emotion, "that was absolutely extraordinary. I studied piano for 12 years and I have never heard Chopin played with such feeling and technical mastery. Where did you learn to play like that?" Before Maya could answer, other guests began gathering around the piano. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed from what it had been just minutes before. Instead of treating Maya like entertainment, these people were now speaking to her as an equal, or perhaps even with a kind of reverence. Dr. Williams, the retired music professor, pushed through the small crowd that was forming. "Young lady, I must know, did you study at a conservatory? That performance was absolutely professional level. I've heard graduates from the finest music schools who couldn't play that piece with half the skill and emotion you just showed." Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention and questions. I studied privately for many years. I was accepted to the Manhattan School of Music, but I couldn't attend." "You couldn't attend?" asked a well-dressed woman with perfectly styled gray hair. "But why? With talent like that, surely any school would have offered you a full scholarship." Maya hesitated. She wasn't used to talking about her personal life, especially not with strangers, but something about these people's genuine interest and respect made her feel like she could be honest. "My parents died in a car accident 3 years ago," she said quietly. "My younger brother was sick and I needed to work to pay for his medical treatments, so I took this job instead." The crowd around the piano fell silent. Many of these people had children of their own, and they couldn't imagine the sacrifice Maya had made. To give up a dream like that, to walk away from such extraordinary talent for the sake of family, it showed a kind of character that money couldn't buy. Mrs. Chen reached out and gently took Maya's hand. "You gave up your music career to take care of your brother?" "It wasn't really a choice," Maya said with a small smile. "He's all the family I have left. His health is more important than my dreams." Dr. Williams shook his head in amazement. "But my dear, don't you realize? This level of talent doesn't just disappear. You could still have a career in music. What you just played proves that you haven't lost any of your ability." "That's very kind of you to say," Maya replied. "But I'm 24 now. Most professional musicians start much younger. And I can't abandon my responsibilities." "Nonsense," said a distinguished-looking man with silver hair. "I'm Robert Harrison. I run the Harrison Foundation. We provide scholarships and support for talented artists." What I just heard was the work of someone who belongs on the world's greatest stages. Maya had heard of the Harrison Foundation. They supported some of the most talented musicians in the country, helping them pursue their careers without financial worry. But she had never imagined she would meet someone like Mr. Harrison, let alone have him interested in her music. "Mr. Harrison, I appreciate your kindness, but I really can't—" "Wait," interrupted a woman with short dark hair and an elegant black dress. "Before you say no to anything, let me introduce myself. I'm Elena Rodriguez, and I work for Classical Records. We're one of the biggest classical music labels in the world." Maya's eyes widened. Classical Records was legendary in the music world. They had recorded some of the greatest pianists of the past century. "What you just played," Elena continued, showed not just technical ability, but the kind of musical understanding that can't be taught. It comes from the heart, from real-life experience. That's what makes the difference between good musicians and great ones. More people were joining the conversation now. A man introduced himself as the director of the city's symphony orchestra. A woman said she ran a concert series that featured rising young artists. Another person mentioned that they owned several music venues around the city. Maya felt like she was dreaming. 3 hours ago, she had been serving drinks to these people, invisible and unimportant. Now they were treating her like she was someone special, someone worth knowing. But it was Dr. Williams who made the most surprising offer of all. "Maya," he said, his voice serious and kind, "I retired from teaching last year, but I still have connections at the conservatory. More importantly, I have the authority to offer private scholarships to exceptional students. If you're willing, I would like to provide you with a full scholarship to complete your music education." Maya felt her heart skip a beat. "Dr. Williams, that's incredibly generous, but I can't afford to stop working. My brother's medical bills would be covered," interrupted Mr. Harrison. "The Harrison Foundation doesn't just pay for education. We provide living stipends and support for family members when necessary. Your brother would receive the best medical care available, and you would be free to focus on your music." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. These strangers were offering to solve all the problems that had seemed impossible just an hour ago, but it felt too good to be true. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would you do all this for someone you just met?" Elena smiled warmly. "Because talent like yours doesn't come along very often. Most of us spend our whole careers looking for artists who can move people the way you just moved this room. When we find someone like that, we don't let them slip away." "But there's more," added Dr. Williams. "I've been in the music world for 40 years, and I can tell you that what you have is more than just talent. You have something to say through your music. Tonight you told us the story of sacrifice and love and perseverance. That's what makes music matter." Maya looked around at all these faces, these successful, wealthy people who were now focused entirely on her. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying all at once. "I need to think about this," she said finally. "It's all so sudden, and I need to talk to my brother. He would have to be part of any decision I make." "Of course," Mr. Harrison said, pulling out his business card. "Take all the time you need, but please don't wait too long. The music world needs artists like you." As the other guests began to disperse, still talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed, Maya noticed that Mr. Blackstone was standing alone near the back of the room. He looked uncomfortable and out of place, which was strange for someone who usually commanded every room he entered. Their eyes met across the room, and Maya saw something she had never seen in his face before: shame. He started to walk toward her, and Maya tensed up, not sure what to expect. "Maya," he said quietly when he reached her. His voice was different now, not the booming, confident tone he usually used. "I owe you an apology." Maya was too surprised to respond. I thought I was making a joke. I didn't realize." He stopped and shook his head. "There's no excuse for what I did. I tried to humiliate you, and instead you showed me what real class looks like." Maya studied his face, trying to determine if this apology was genuine. Mr. Blackstone looked truly uncomfortable, like someone who wasn't used to admitting he was wrong. "I accept your apology," Maya said simply. Mr. Blackstone nodded gratefully and turned to walk away, but then he stopped and looked back. "For what it's worth," he said, "I hope you take their offers. The world needs to hear you play." As he walked away, Maya realized that this night had changed more than just her own life. Sometimes when we see the best in other people, it makes us want to be better ourselves. Elena Rodriguez approached Maya one more time before leaving. "I meant what I said about the recording contract. But even if you decide not to pursue music professionally, promise me you won't stop playing. What you have is too precious to waste." Maya nodded, still trying to process everything that had happened. A few hours ago, her biggest worry had been making enough in tips to help cover Diego's medical bills. Now she had offers that could change everything, not just for her, but for her brother too. As the last of the guests left the private dining room, Maya sat back down at the piano. She placed her hands on the keys and played a few soft notes, just to make sure this had all really happened. The music was still there, still flowing through her fingers like it had never left. And for the first time in 3 years, Maya allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her dreams weren't dead after all. But first, she had to talk to Diego. Whatever she decided, they would decide together. That's what family did for each other. Maya drove to the hospital the next morning with a folder full of business cards and her mind spinning with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. She had barely slept, replaying the events of the previous night over and over in her head. Part of her still couldn't believe it had really happened. When she walked into Diego's room, her brother took one look at her face and smiled. "Something good happened," he said. It wasn't a question. After all these years together, Diego could read his sister's moods better than anyone. Maya sat down in the chair next to his bed and took a deep breath. "Diego, I need to tell you about last night, and then we need to make a decision together." She told him everything. About Mr. Blackstone's cruel plan, about being forced to play piano in front of all those wealthy strangers, and about the incredible response to her performance. Diego listened quietly, his eyes getting wider with each part of the story. When she got to the part about the scholarship offers and the recording contract, Diego sat up straighter in his hospital bed. "Maya, this is incredible. This is everything you always dreamed of. But what about you?" Maya asked. "What about your treatment? I can't just abandon my responsibilities." Diego was quiet for a moment, then he reached out and took her hand. "Sis, for 3 years you've been taking care of me. You gave up your dreams, your future, everything that mattered to you. And you never complained, not even once. Because you're more important than any dream," Maya said firmly. "No, I'm not," Diego replied, his voice gentle but serious. "Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for everything you've done. But Maya, what kind of brother would I be if I let you throw away a gift like this, especially when these people are offering to help both of us?" Maya felt tears starting in her eyes. But what if something goes wrong? What if the foundation doesn't really follow through on their promises? What if I'm not good enough after all these years away from music? "Then we'll figure it out, like we always do," Diego said with a smile. "But Maya, you can't live your whole life afraid of what might go wrong. Sometimes you have to take a chance on what might go right." That afternoon, Maya called Dr. Williams. Her hands were shaking as she dialed his number, but Diego sat beside her on the couch, holding her other hand for support. "Dr. Williams, this is Maya from last night. I wanted to talk to you about your offer." "Maya, I'm so glad you called. Have you made a decision?" Maya took a deep breath. "I'd like to accept your scholarship offer if it's still available, but I need to make sure my brother will really be taken care of." "Absolutely. Let me connect you with Mr. Harrison from the foundation. He can explain exactly what support they provide for family members." Within a week, Maya's life had been turned completely upside down in the best possible way. The Harrison Foundation was even more generous than she had dared to hope. They arranged for Diego to be treated by one of the best specialists in the country, and his new treatment plan was already showing promising results. Maya enrolled in an accelerated program at the conservatory, designed for older students who were returning to music after time away. Dr. Williams had been right. Her skills hadn't disappeared during her years away from the piano. If anything, her life experiences had given her playing a depth and emotional maturity that impressed even her toughest professors. Elena from classical records kept in touch, coming to Maya's student recitals and offering encouragement. "You're not ready for a recording contract yet," she said honestly, "but you will be soon. Keep working, keep growing as an artist." The hardest part was leaving her job at Romano's, but even that turned out better than expected. Her manager had heard about what happened at the party, and he was genuinely happy for her success. "Maya, in all my years in this business, I've never seen anything like what happened that night," he said. "You belong on a concert stage, not carrying trays. We'll miss you, but we're proud of you." Even some of the other servers threw her a little goodbye party, telling her they had always known there was something special about her. 3 months later, Maya gave her first public concert since high school. It was a small venue, just a recital hall at the conservatory, but it was sold out. Diego sat in the front row, beaming with pride, along with Dr. Williams, Elena, and several of the people who had been at Mr. Blackstone's party that fateful night. Maya had chosen to play the same Chopin ballad that had changed her life, but this time it told a different story. It still spoke of struggle and sacrifice, but now it also spoke of hope, of second chances, and of dreams that refused to die. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause that went on for nearly 10 minutes. As Maya took her bow, she caught sight of a familiar face in the back of the hall. Mr. Blackstone was there, clapping as enthusiastically as everyone else. After the concert, he approached her nervously. "Maya, I hope you don't mind that I came. I heard about your concert and, well, I wanted to see how you were doing." "I don't mind at all," Maya said, and she meant it. "Thank you for coming." "I want you to know," Mr. Blackstone said quietly, "that night at the restaurant changed me. Seeing what I almost destroyed, what I tried to mock, it made me take a hard look at myself. I've been trying to be better, to treat people with more respect." Maya could see that he was sincere. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Blackstone. What matters is learning from them." 6 months later, Maya was featured on the cover of Classical Music Today magazine. The headline read, "From Waitress to Wonder, the inspiring story of Maya Rodriguez." But the article wasn't just about her musical talent. It focused on her journey, her sacrifice for family, and her determination to never give up on the things that matter most. The story inspired thousands of readers, many of whom wrote letters, sharing their own stories of deferred dreams and unexpected second chances. A year after that night at Romano's, Maya signed her first recording contract with Classical Records. Her debut album, titled Songs of Sacrifice, featured the Chopin ballad that had started it all, along with other pieces that reflected her journey. The album was a surprise hit, reaching the top of the classical music charts and earning critical acclaim from around the world. But more importantly to Maya, the proceeds from the album helped establish the Diego Rodriguez Foundation, which provided music education and instruments to underprivileged children. "Music saved my life," Maya said in interviews about the foundation. "I want to make sure other kids get the same chances I did, even if their circumstances are difficult." Diego's health continued to improve dramatically. The new treatments had been more successful than anyone had dared to hope, and the doctors were optimistic about his long-term prognosis. He often accompanied Maya to her concerts, and his presence in the audience always made her play even better. 2 years after her debut album, Maya was invited to perform at Carnegie Hall. As she walked onto that legendary stage, she thought about the journey that had brought her there. From a struggling waitress hiding her talents to a celebrated artist inspiring others, it seemed impossible that so much could change so quickly. But as Maya sat down at the piano that night and began to play, she realized that the most important things hadn't changed at all. She was still the same person who would do anything for her family. She was still someone who believed in the power of music to heal and inspire. And she was still grateful for every single day she got to share her gift with the world. The audience that night included many faces from that party at Romano's, but it also included music students from around the world, young people who saw Maya as proof that it's never too late to pursue your dreams. After her performance, Maya was approached by a young woman who looked to be about college age. "Ms. Rodriguez," the girl said shyly, "I just wanted to thank you. I was about to give up on music school because my family can't afford it, but your story gave me hope. I applied to the Diego Rodriguez Foundation, and they're going to help me finish my education." Maya smiled and took the girl's hands. "Never give up on your dreams. Sometimes they just take longer to come true than we expect." As Maya left Carnegie Hall that night, she passed a small restaurant where she could see servers bustling around, working hard to make ends meet. She thought about how many talented people might be hidden in plain sight, their gifts unknown to the world because of circumstances beyond their control. That's why she had started the foundation. That's why she told her story whenever anyone would listen. because she knew that talent exists everywhere, in the most unexpected places and people. Maya's story became a reminder that we should never underestimate others based on their circumstances. The person serving your food, cleaning your office, or ringing up your groceries might have talents and dreams that would amaze you, if only they had the chance to share them. And sometimes what starts as cruelty or prejudice can accidentally become the catalyst for something beautiful. Mr. Blackstone's attempt to humiliate Maya had backfired in the most wonderful way possible, giving her the platform she needed to reclaim her dreams. Years later, when Maya had become one of the most respected classical pianists in the world, people would ask her about that night at Romano's. How did it feel to go from being mocked to being celebrated in the span of a single performance? Maya's answer was always the same. That night taught me that our